Billy Idol, I just finished your book, and you held nothing back. There is some real truth and honesty, warts and all, some real story. And that to me is what's really intriguing about you as an artist. When you came up was such a pivotal time in music. For me personally, I think it's the most important time. And you've talked many times about you were a huge Sex Pistols fan. And of course, their message at the time, and to an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, you know, things were pretty bleak, a little hopeless, no future. And yet, that would be very appealing, I would think, as an 18-year-old. And you were a part of that scene. And was that the inspiration for you to launch Generation X, or was it even from your love of the Beatles?
Yes, I did love music. I'd grown up loving music, really. I mean, I did buy Beatle records when I was very young, 6 and a half. But, yeah, when it came to the mid-'70s and England was in such a bad way economically, there was a terrible depression. I mean, the whole country had actually been on a 3-day week early in the 70s where there was no electricity at night. And I don't know, the whole country was, up in an uproar. Mm-hmm. And, you could see that the young people like say, Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, yeah, he saw that we were being told we felt it, but he put it into words, that there was no future for you in England's dreaming. And we really sort of took hold of that, yeah. And it was like our mantra, I suppose you say today, or something.
But you, as such a motivated person, it still inspired you to start your own band and to, in a way, almost flip that on its head and say, no, there is a future, and there is a possibility of music and fun and sex and rock and roll.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really know we were doing that because, of course, we were doing things just purely for the moment. When we started Generation X, we very much influenced by the Clash and the Sex Pistols, but we were very much our own band because that was the first sort of wave of punk rock groups. Were very different. They weren't all the same. And that was really important because I think that was part of the message that we were getting from like-minded beings mm-hmm. around us, was that you didn't just copy what was going on. You tried to come up with your own version of it and your own truth, really. And that's, I think, why the groups were so radically different, because we were all looking for what was true for us.
Right. And I think with Generation X, because you guys always had the punk sensibility and that attitude, but those were real pop songs you wrote.
Yeah, we wanted them to really last a long time. I wanted them, even from day one, I wanted them to work on an acoustic guitar. Even though I knew they were going to be played on an electric guitar, I wanted the idea that they were good enough that you could just play them acoustically, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
Yeah.
Is playing my songs acoustically. They usually played electric, and I think you'll see that that's part of the fun of writing songs is trying to come up with that a song can exist not just one way. It can be multifarious, mm-hmm. and it has multi-purpose in its lyrics and stuff like that. So I think a lot of that was what we grew up. We grew up with a certain time with music. Music was very important when we were growing up, super important. And it was really one of the few ways people were communicating back then. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that's still going on. But, of course, there's so many different ways of communicating today with the computer and the internet and everything. But this was our way of doing it, was talking through music. I mean, other people picked up a camera and became a photographer. Some people picked up a typewriter and made a fanzine and wrote
Sure.
about the scene or wrote about what they felt about England or the world. And that was our way of speaking out.
And I think you were, in a sense, ahead of your time, because what you were probably thinking, I'm assuming, was this could also be very danceable music. It didn't have to be just people gobbing and pogoing. You had a sensibility, it seems, somewhere artistically that you wanted people to groove and to dance.
Yes, I mean, definitely, especially when I got into my solo stuff, it was very much about that. I mean, early rock and roll, the sort of early rock and roll, people used to dance to it. It was like, it wasn't just one, it was had multi-purpose. Mm-hmm. And you could listen to it, or you could dance to it, or you could have sex to it. And very much, I was looking for a very similar get back to those roots where the music was multi-purpose and you could do all these different things to it. And
Yeah.
and it kind of there was a bit of a funny anti-sex thing going on in punk, and it was fun to kind of like cast that aside a bit and say, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, you know.
Well, and then you were a zigzagger. You moved to New York, and you lived pretty lean in those early days. I presume you were living in a crap hole, and
Yes, that's kind of was the par for the course back in those days. But you know, you believed in what you were doing so much that you could put up with anything to a certain extent. And we were very young, so of course we could make even the grottiest place look seem romantic in
Yeah.
our minds. And
Yeah.
that was partly what you were doing. You were sort of taking the crap they'd given us and try to shine it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somehow it's crazy, but
Yeah.
try and turn it into something good. And the crap they'd given us, turn it into something good. It was
and your management, Bill Aucoin, who had been Kiss's manager, really encouraged you to be an individual and to be outrageous and as wild as you wanted to be.
Well, yeah, I think he felt, you know, you should follow your own heart. He was doing that with his own life very much.
Yeah.
And he was a guy who wore a suit, but as I've said in my book, he was the least suit person in the world. This guy was a wild man, and I would have to go it some on stage if I was going to keep up with him in the boardroom, so to speak, because he was incredible. He's an incredible salesman, and it was just a great team, and he introduced me to Steve Stevens, and I think you can see that Bill Aucoin was beyond just a manager. He was very much a part of what we were doing, and you can see he was bigger than just Kiss, really. He was bigger than just one group, and I love the fact that he put me and Steve together, and we're sort of still together, kind of... there you are, Bill. We're still together, man.
Yeah.
And he's passed on now, but...
Yeah.
Somewhere he knows the thing he put together is still alive.
And MTV could not have come around at a better time for you, for an artist who was so visual. And, you know, there weren't a lot of videos that were actually available to people. So anyone who was really making some great music and videos got a lot of airplay.
Yeah, there's hardly any videos. I mean, that was the great thing. And then the video channel was on 24 hours a day. And in those days, it wasn't really the reality television of today. It was purely a music channel. And all they did was show the few videos they had. And if you had a video out, you'd be on it once an hour. And everybody in the country started to watch MTV. So it did give us massive exposure, and it broke a lot of new acts. It really did. I mean, people like me were having problems with the radio. The radio didn't want to play your music if they thought you had a punk rock image, and because they didn't think it sold advertising dollars. So I think we proved that wrong, and next minute all the young people were phoning up the radio stations, and they could see there was an audience for this new music, and it was so exciting, and I hope that comes across in my book. I really do.
I think it does. And again, it's in your book, you're very raw and very honest about, your drug use. And to me, I always wonder, because it's something that I think everyone's been touched by on some level. And yet I wonder, at what point did you feel like you weren't using drugs, but drugs were using you?
Yeah, well, I would think really by the early 90s, I started to really understand that. But it took a long time. You just believe the honeymoon's going to go on forever, and it doesn't. And you keep trying to recapture that first flush of love that you had, and doesn't quite happen. But so of course you go on ad infinitum trying to find that. But it was really in the 90s, really, say with my motorcycle accident and a number of other things that happened. You soon start seeing the writing on the wall, although it takes a very long time to see it clearly and understand quite what it's telling you.
And sometimes some people never understand it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of them are not with us today.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing that I think about a lot. That a lot of people I used to know, they're not here today, and I'm very lucky to be here enjoying my life.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the new record, because you worked with a couple of different producers on this new record. And I think I had read that one of the producers had produced Lily Allen and some other really interesting artists. Had somebody brought these people to you, or did you seek them out?
Well, I was looking, I've been looking for a producer who would kind of understand this modern world, but still had a kind of a touchstone moment with, say, where I came from. And actually, Greg Kurstin was living in LA and very much a young teenager involved in punk rock. and stuff on the scene, going to see some of the punk rock groups in the late 70s and early 80s. And so he very much grew up with it. So it's not foreign to him at all, where I'm coming from. And so that was fun to find someone like that, younger than me, but kind of in touch with where we were and where we're going and where we like to be, sort of mixing sensibilities. I like that. I like to mix sensibilities. I love the idea of mixing dance music with rock and roll, with groove music, with soul, and just putting it all together in a big stew and seeing what happens. You know?
And do you look out into your audience and see faces that are younger and think, this is me. This was me. These people are being changed and reached by rock and roll just as you were.
Well, I hope so. I know a lot of people think, say, music is not quite so important to people. But I don't believe that. I think it's always going to be important to people. I think there's things you can say with music that you can't always say with your words, your actual verbalizations, but you can somehow with the music and the lyrics, suddenly a third thing happens and you get some clarity with your life. And that's what it gave to me. And so I loved the idea. I love what you were just saying, that there's somebody there enjoying what we're doing and gets a buzz from it that they didn't get from something else, and it gives them hope. I mean, that's kind of what it did for me.
Is there anyone that you think has written the perfect song that you wish you wrote?
Well, I love a lot of Lou Reed songs or Iggy Pop or David Bowie songs. Of course, all those artists have written great songs, but at the same time, it's been fun to sort of add my view into the pot and kind of to take what they gave me and then give something back. That was the fun of it.
Oh, so you've done so much. I mean, you've done so much in your career musically. You've done acting. You're an author. Is there anything out there that you want to try that you haven't done?
I'm not sure, actually. That's a wild question. The great thing is that I'm still having fun doing this. I know we're sitting in this kind of backstage room. It doesn't look all that glamorous. But once you're on that stage, the glamour, the lifeblood, it's there. And this all fades away. And it's the humanity that's out there and the feelings they have that's so exciting.
Well, this has been almost a dream come true. I thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and then to go up and perform for some really true fans.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.